Hey everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. And we have a full house this evening, which is awesome. Joining us as usual from the wilds of Pennsylvania. Good evening, Beth.
Good evening.
And hopefully feeling much better this week. Good evening, Morgan.
Good evening. I have survived the flu. Yay!
Yay! Well, you're looking pretty good for having been.
Yeah, it was rough. I've never had the flu before, so I was just like, does this feel like death? Is this what's happening?
Somebody knocked me over the head and put me out of my misery kind of thing.
Yeah, it was rough, but it looks like I made it, so yay.
Hey. Oh boy. Well, and joining us all the way from Nashville, Tennessee. Good evening, Patrick.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. I mean, we'll take Zach's leftovers. You know, it's kind of how it goes.
Yeah, actually, I'm just a little bit closer to Nashville because if you are in Pennsylvania, as you called it, I'm actually in the real Kentucky. That's actually where I live, about an hour and 15 minutes north of Nashville.
Okay, well, Beth, and, the mountains.
I'm in buttfuck nowhereville in Pennsylvania, right in the middle. Well, not directly in the middle, but I'm in central PA.
So right on.
I'm three hours from Pittsburgh, 5 hours from Philly, and there's nothing in between.
How far are you from like Harrisburg or Lewisburg or any of those places?
About 2.5 from Harrisburg. About an hour and a half or so from Altoona, an hour from Bradford, but I don't drive anymore, so I'm stuck where I'm at.
Gotcha.
I mean, to go grocery shopping, it's a half-hour drive.
Wow, no kidding.
When I can get somebody.
It's beautiful country. I have family that's from up there, but right here, actually,
it's beautiful in the sense that, I mean, historically, there's a lot of stuff, but I'm a Flatlander, transplanted. I'm originally from Buffalo, so this is like even after 16 years. Yeah, I mean it's kind of even after it's 18 years now. It's still a culture shock.
I bet.
Wow.
I mean we have nothing. We have a bowling alley when it's open. That's
very nice.
Where she lives a couple of times. It's a little small.
Yeah, the town is a mile long.
Stoplights?
I think
3.
By the way,
I think there's 3.
Beth, just to let you know, we're getting a bit of that echo that we had last week. So just to let you know. But Morgan, Dave from Great Debate Community, he's in the chat, and he says that praying and Robitussin gets rid of the flu. Just so you know.
I actually had a little rant to do after because my doctor, so one of the reasons I knew I was getting worse was because I was prescribed hydrocodone for my respiratory infection, and it was doing nothing to my cough. Like, it was just like, NyQuil was honestly working better. So I was like, can you give me anything stronger? And they're like, no. And so I just went on a rant to my boyfriend. I was like, I have to suffer because everybody in this fucking state is on drugs. So yeah, it was. Yeah, but they were like, yeah, we can't give you anything stronger here because it was just an urgent care clinic. And I was just like, Jesus, they're just going to do meth anyway.
They'll cook it with something else.
Yeah, ugh.
Wow.
Oh man. Well, I can sympathize because I had a lung infection last year that landed me in the hospital, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the hell it was they had, because I had a lot of nausea and just because there was some diabetic issues and whatnot going on too. And at some points I was just so uncomfortable that I was like, look, I need something. I don't know what the fuck it was they gave me. They said it was better than morphine, but one shot of that stuff and I was like, oh, I'm out.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what happened. They're like, here's a Tylenol for your
Oh.
troubles. And it's just like, come on. I have a flu. Like, it was the first time having a flu. It was terrible.
For me to get the really good shit, I had to be in the ICU. So I don't really that. So
Yeah, and we don't have healthcare here, so that would not go well for me.
because that, 5 days in the ICU, it cost me $50 for the ambulance.
Wow.
Me, I'd already told all my friends, I'm like, if I pass out or anything, do not call an ambulance. I will like I'll get an Uber.
Crazy. One day in ICU is $10,000, $7,000 to $10,000.
Yeah, and I have insurance
just for one day.
That deductible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy. I mean, my bill from when I had my stroke was over $64,000, and they didn't do jack shit.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like, seriously? I mean,
I actually read not too long ago that Ubers are being used as ambulances.
Oh no.
Yeah, because people can't afford the ambulance fees.
Yeah,
that's horrifying. That is too much responsibility for a poor Uber driver.
Could you imagine? You're like, oh, I'm going to be an Uber driver in the weekend. And you're like, you pick up a fare and they're like, yeah, can you step on it to the hospital? My wife's in labor. Like,
yeah, wow. Like this is not, no.
She's crowning. So could you go a little faster?
I'm having a heart attack. Could you just make sure like I make it there alive? And it's like, oh man, I'm just a college student trying to get money. Like, what is happening?
Yeah. Poor bastard with a stab wound, how much if I bleed on your seat? Like, ugh. Oh boy. So anyway, so Patrick, we met, well, I guess 2 years ago now, isn't it? Damn.
Yeah, it has been.
I went to ReasonCon last year.
Okay.
I got my NaNo Con shirt on.
Yeah, I see you rocking it. The original 2016.
Original.
Very nice.
I was there
collector's item.
That's right. But first of all, we'll spend some time talking about the conference, absolutely. But I always like to get a little bit of background from my guests. And so my question I usually ask is, were you religious? And if so, what flavor?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's actually a good question. Not only was I religious, but I am a pastor's kid. Not only was I a pastor's kid, I was a missionary kid. And so, we lived in Europe for 13 years, 9 of which I spent in southern Italy, in Sicily, actually, and on an island there in the Mediterranean. And then the last 4 I spent in high school in Germany before I came back to the States for college. So, yeah, definitely religious. And around the time that I came back to the States and started school, kind of started getting away from the faith. And but it wasn't till about 10 years later, after I had joined the Army, I think I was like 29 at the time, that I finally started to identify as a not really religious person. And then it was only like the last 4 or 5 years that I came out as an atheist. So that's kind of like the trajectory real quick.
Yeah. So it's recent then for you, really.
Yeah, definitely.
So what was the sort of impetus for you changing sides, as it were?
Well, actually coming out of my upbringing was fairly benign and non-traumatic in the sense that my background is Mennonite, and like my mom's family came out of the Amish. So like when I was really young, my mom still wore like the covering and the cape dress and all that. But I mean, now you'd see my family, at the mall, you'd never know that they were anything different. They've pretty much gone fairly mainstream, but that was a big part of my upbringing and part of my culture. I know there are quite a lot of Mennonites there in Canada, so I don't know if you've come across any.
I live in Mennonite country.
Oh, no way.
It's nothing for me to go to the store and see a Mennonite family all in their black bonnets and their capes and
Yeah.
What's the difference between Mennonites and Amish? I never knew that.
Well, I guess it's sort of like different flavors of like saying you're Jewish in the
Oh,
sense
okay.
that, you can, I mean, they're very close religiously. There's Mennonites that still speak like Low German, in other words, sort of like a
Mhm.
Pennsylvania Dutch, but just about all the Amish speak Pennsylvania Dutch still. And actually, where I am in Kentucky right now, there are several Amish communities. Several people I know here that I actually am like very distantly related to, believe it or not. So, um, yeah, but no, the Amish, they pretty much are the ones that really stay away from any kind of technology that is
Okay.
anything more advanced than like a horse and buggy. I mean, I remember driving home from work one time, and I turn a corner and I drive past this field, and I see this kid who must have been, I kid you not, no older than like maybe 9, maybe 10, and he is directing a team of like 8 horses, or it's just something like it's just a huge team of horses plowing this field in the middle of the day and not going to school. And I'm just thinking there, man, there but for the grace of Charles Darwin go I. I mean, it could have been easily. So, like a lot of times they don't go further than 8th grade. And like I've heard stories of people going to high school but repeating the same year over and over until they could fulfill their obligation with the local school district. But they consider education like some of them a detriment to your relationship with God. The best way to make an honest living is to live off the land and be a farmer, because that's good, honest, hard work, and it kind of makes you dependent on, God's provisions, so to speak. But yeah, thankfully, I yes, go ahead.
We have a sort of range of Mennonites here.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the totally eschewing any technology kind that have buggies and there's no electricity on the farms and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I went to school with a couple other flavors of Mennonite. There
Mm-hmm.
were some kids that they had their families were allowed to have vehicles as long as they were plain and dark color and didn't have any bells or whistles. In fact, my husband's pickup truck, he bought it new from the dealer, but my husband's a very frugal, practical person, so he bought the Amish model or the Mennonite model.
So no chrome, huh?
Yeah, no chrome. It's black. It's got wine. It doesn't even have air conditioning in it.
Oh my gosh!
But he got it for a good price, brand new, because it is basically a base model, right?
Mm-hmm.
But around here they call it a night model, and then there's a friend of a friend I know whose family is what they would call, I guess, Reformed Mennonite. You would never know they were Mennonite.
Mm-hmm.
Like they have TVs and cell phones and various cars and whatever. But there's all sort of that gradation of, what degree of Mennonite are you? Because the ones that wear that drive the buggies, they always have the heavy black bonnets and the black capes and monochromatic dresses and all of that. And yet the ones that might have the dark car with nothing in it, they would wear maybe like a floral print dress, and they would have like the little mesh cap over their bun kind of thing.
Yeah, that is definitely the story of my mom's upbringing in terms of, it was a major theological issue of whether they could have like some kind of a floral print on their dresses. It's kind of like the whole thing of being in the world but not of it. But but it's like you say, there's a very wide range. Like, I grew up in Italy, so my experience was different. But then when we came back, I was like pretty much any other college kid, long hair, and I guess what you would have called in the 90s, like, peace and justice kid, like I guess precursor of a social justice person, But then I was the Mennonite kid who went off and joined the army. So definitely the black sheep of the family in that way. So
yeah, because they're very much pacifists.
Very much so, yeah.
war and all of that. My goodness. So did that have a major impact on your family and that when you decided don't believe that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was more of like just a personal decision that, I was a photographer and a photojournalist at the time, and I'd always kind of like fantasized about being like a combat correspondent, like a war photographer, sort of like Robert Capa or something like that. So I took a ROTC lab in college, just kind of like see if I could do some of the stuff that they were doing, and feel like I was kind of like right in there with them in terms of like the willingness to do dangerous things or whatever. And just from that exposure and familiarity, 9/11 happened, and by 2003 the Iraq war happened, and I realized how little a lot of the people in the media really understood what was going on overseas to be able to cover it intelligently. And so I figured, it's kind of part of my education to get over there and see like real world what exactly is going on, and end up staying in for 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I just got out last August, a year ago.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
So did you do photography then, or when
No, I was in communications and doing combat stuff. So
wow. Yeah,
but,
that's the black sheep of a Mennonite family.
Right. Yeah, and that's how I ended up here in Kentucky, just north of Nashville. I mean, that I definitely had those difficult conversations with my parents and explained to them why I was doing it, and I guess it was kind of like a agree to disagree thing. But to my parents' credit, even though they disagree with it, they still drove 8 hours to see me graduate from basic training, and all the different stages that I went through. Yeah, but I mean, that part of leaving the Mennonite faith was, I think, like I said, fairly benign. I mean, a lot of things that, about that culture and about that kind of identity are important to me. And still, I think some of them, have, a lot of good things that are somewhat admirable, in a lot of senses. They're very charitable, a lot of overseas travel, kind of like very much, like, I guess you might say the opposite of the ugly American, in the sense that they're there to, to help and to learn and to listen and to, I guess not be that asshole, so, a lot of things are I think are admirable about some things of the Mennonite faith, but it's still very much definitely a evangelical Christian type of a mindset. But to answer your question, I think what did it for me was actually getting married to somebody who was not Mennonite, who was very much, my ex was very much like Reformed, very Calvinist, kind of like, if you can imagine, very much cut from the same cloth as Betsy DeVos, in terms of like from Michigan there. Yeah, and like those are her people, the Dutch, Reformed, very like.
Well, guess what? I started out in the most liberal denomination probably on the planet. It's called the United Church of Canada.
Oh, wow.
And when I was 13, my stupid teenage move was to join a Calvinist sect that were an
good for you.
Offshoot of that.
That's when he rebels.
Yeah, I know. I
went from Lutheran to Pentecostal.
Yeah,
Figure that one out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that wasn't probably the best.
An atheist.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, but now I'm familiar with the lovely Dutch Reform Calvinist folk.
Yeah. Very much like, dominionist Ted Cruz, like Betsy DeVos, using the seat of government and power to educate the masses and inject morality, Christian style. Yeah.
Ours aren't like that. They were very insular, and they didn't really have any interest in politics at all here.
Mm-hmm.
It was all just about the little community that we were, and trying to keep that going, and keep people and bringing more people in, of course, because recruitment. But now ours are very apolitical at all.
Yeah.
In fact, even the ones the most politically active religious folk in Canada, a good chunk of them would come from Alberta way. And
gotcha.
I don't think they're like Dutch Reform style Calvinists.
Yeah.
They would be more the sort of evangelical, sort of quiverful sort patriot.
Oh, yeah.
The Dutch
Quiver
Reform.
full, prepper, homeschool, all of that stuff.
Well, that's what makes the Dominionist movement so challenging, is there's no one theology behind it. As far as you could have, Bill Donahue from the Catholic League, you have Betsy DeVos, who's another flavor, then you have the Southern Baptists, then you have the Ted Cruz types, then you have Mitt Romney, who's fucking Mormon. But there is an underlying theology of, quote, power. So you can't really pin one religious sect as being, behind it. But those that are in power within the Dominionist movement are all one flavor. And trust me, Bill Donahue's going to get cut loose as soon as they get what they want. Mitt Romney is going to get cut loose because that's what makes them so challenging to fight.
Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, in terms of like the whole political agenda, like the stay-at-home mom raising up the homeschool kids to, be fighting the fight and, and very much indoctrinated and plugged in and like going to all these, kind of like pipeline schools that are essentially putting these kids straight into the culture wars, so to speak. That's definitely the experience that, coming out of that type of a situation that was so different than the more kind of, live and let live way that I was raised. I think that's pretty much what made me really re-examine the way the religion that I grew up with, and pretty much was instrumental in me getting involved and in a very strong way becoming like activist, within the secular and atheist movement, because it's sort of like, I think probably 10 years ago when I first joined the Army, I would have considered myself like spiritual but not religious. But then you deal with some of these hardcore people and how much they really have no problem telling you how to live your life and stepping all over your freedoms. And it's like, all right, it's time to push back a little bit. And that's kind of...
I've gotten that from a number of people that either came from a very strict, hardcore Christian upbringing, or who eventually encountered such a group. And same kind of thing. It's like, I was kind of happy to sort of believe whatever, and then assholes came along, and I was like, fuck that shit. And then I started looking, and now I'm an atheist, kind of thing. So.
Exactly. Yeah, and sorry, I'm moving around a little bit. I'm plugging my phone because it's about to die on me here. But I'm still good, still participating here. But and I definitely know what you're talking about in terms of like you deal with people that are very much have an agenda and more militant about who they are. And I think that's really, at least in my case, what drives people towards like, screw that. The whole church-state separation thing is not an abstract issue for us. It's like very much a real part of, day-to-day the fight. I mean, not only that, but also where I live in Kentucky, it's, very religious, very conservative. And it's actually called Christian County, Kentucky here. I kid you not. So,
Are you close to the Ark?
No, that's kind of up there a little bit closer to Cincinnati, I think, on the Kentucky side. So it's probably like 3 hours or so from here. But no, I've definitely been up that way, and the Creation Museum and all that. So
I don't know if you remember, I wore my glory hole shirt to the conference last time. And
no.
With the giant penis on it. And
oh my gosh.
He walked around the grounds of the Opry with me wearing that.
Oh, nice. Making some new friends, I'm sure.
In the gift shop. And my favorite story, there was about 8 of us had gone to breakfast at a Hardee's that morning. And there was 2 or 3 lines going, but we were all sort of clustered together. And the young lady that was taking my order, she was sort of your typical, early 20s, working in the fast food joint kind of young lady, and just looks up at me, and here I'm standing there with giant penis on my chest, and she's like, because I think it was Celeste had an anime purse with her. And so this young lady just looks at me and she goes, "Y'all having an anime convention?" No, yes. And I was like, but it's okay. I'm Canadian. And she's just like, would y'all like some tater tots with that?
Didn't know where to go with it, huh?
Yeah.
How do you follow that one up?
Exactly.
Well, and that brings up a good point, and it goes back to something Patrick said earlier, is that nobody knows what atheism is. You ask, a fundamentalist and evangelical, and they so straw man it. And it's like, even like where I'm at, this was years ago, and when I told somebody I was an atheist, they were like, oh! I said, you've liked me for 6 years, now all of a sudden you're aghast that I'm an atheist? It's like, hello, I haven't changed any.
Right.
And I said, think about what you're doing. I said, think about your reaction. And they were like, oh, yeah, true. I'm like, nothing's changed. I said, I didn't change my beliefs overnight.
Yeah, very true. Sort of like it's a growing process of figuring out what the whole atheist thing is all about. And I know what you mean.
Dave in the chat wants to know if you've actually been to the Ark, Patrick.
I have not been to the Ark. I've been to the Creation Museum, and the time that I went up there was actually, believe it or not, with a few of my Army buddies. We were like a tight-knit group of guys that were in like military atheists and secular humanists, and we went up to the Creation Museum the weekend that the famous Ken Ham Bill Nye debate happened. Yeah, and we had somehow gotten misinformation that we'd be able to go in for free, and that was wrong. We still had to pay, like half price or something to get in, but they let me, I kind of was able to get my Pastafarian colander hat in, and then BuzzFeed was there and they interviewed us, so that was kind of cool.
Oh,
yeah, from like those things, 20 things to ask creationists, and then 20 things like the questions that they asked evolutionists. So it was kind of fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So when you were you a believer in the Army, or was that after? Well, you said it's about 5 years, so sometime in the Army.
Yeah.
Challenge.
I think like right before I went into the Army, I had been like not involved at the church, and I remember the day that I shipped out for basic training, I was talking with my brother, and he's like, yeah, you kind of better, get right with the Lord, probably because I thought I was going to go die. But, so I think for a couple of weeks, I went to the little chapel there during basic training. And then I said, the hell with this. But, yeah, I was like, thanks, but no thanks. But no, I mean, I think, like I said, it was just kind of spiritual, but not religious. But believe it or not, when I first started asking the hard questions as a result of, conversations that I was having with my then wife, the way I really kind of got plugged into this, into this thing was that I went to the library, the military library on post, and believe it or not, they had a decent selection there of like books on CD with like, God is Not Great, the Dawkins, Hitchens, all of those, some of the classics, and so I was just, just eating those up, and then started getting involved on Meetup. And it just happened to be right around the time that Nashville Atheists was kind of really going strong, and Sunday Assembly Nashville got started. So I got involved with them, and then I was still kind of in and out of deployments. But by the time I got back, then was right around the time that we started NaNo Con. So that's kind of how the progression of radicalization went.
So you never really had like a light bulb moment. It just was. You flowed just from one to the other, so to speak.
Yeah, well, there was two kind of two different episodes that happened. One was like that, my ex was saying, okay, we were having a bunch of questions and debates, and she's like, you need to figure out what you believe. And so the family went off to church one morning, and I stayed at home, and I watched this video called "The Case for Christ" by Lee Strobel. Right. And there's a video that accompanied that. And I'm just watching this movie, and they have like the mood music in the background. And it's just like the first time it really hit me. It's like, this really is a crock of shit. And it really is like the whole manipulation thing just kind of sunk in for me. And so I just sat down at a computer and started typing, and just like like just taking it, like getting off my chest, all of the emotions and just really strong frustration that all of a sudden I was realizing I felt about the way I was raised and how it didn't make any sense. You know, like that 95% or more of the people that have ever lived on this planet are probably going to go to hell, you know, and that just really doesn't make sense. Anyways, just, you know, that whole, and so then I took it and I sent it to my family. My dad's a pastor. My sister, you know, graduated from seminary. Is like, this is what you guys believe, right? I mean, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, I think I understand this stuff pretty well. And my sister, to her credit, she, you know, she was actually leading a church back in Virginia, like a small, like maybe 30, 40, like a church of young people. And so I went back there one Sunday from North Carolina, and I had, like, by this point, what I was writing had grown to like 5 or 6 pages, right? And the Sunday morning that I visited, she took it and read it verbatim Sunday morning. And then this is me, like, you know, absolutely pulling no pun. I mean, just going to town on Christianity, right? And she read it in front of her church, and just hearing her validate, yeah, right. You know, it just was so affirming to me. I was like, wow, this is these are some, you know, issues that it's not just me, you know. So that was kind of like one thing that kind of was like a turning point for me. But I think what really brought it home was that, you know, by this point, you know, we had kids. My daughter at this point was 6 years old, and we're sitting around the dinner table one night, and all out of nowhere, she goes, "So let me get this right. Who here is saved?" Right? And there's my ex and 4 kids at the table, you know, and everybody except me raises their hand. And my 6-year-old daughter looks me straight in the eye and she says, "You're going to hell."
Oh.
And it's just like, and everybody just like the whole conversation stopped. And everybody's just wrapping their minds of the words that just came out of this child's mouth. And it was sort of like, this is what you guys really believe. And I don't think it was anything that my ex had taught her. It was something that she had heard in Sunday school or something like that. And this was just her repeating back, you know, the garbage that she had been fed. And so that, from that moment on, I decided that a few things were going to have to change, because up to that point, you know, the kids had asked me, so, you know, where do we come from? Or like, what's, you know, how did the world come? And I gave them like a doctrinally correct, you know, creation story from Genesis, even as an atheist, you know, just so, hey, I'll play along, whatever. But then that happened, and I was like, all right, something's got to change. You know, these kids got to understand and got to know who I am, and really, you know, be able to appreciate me for, you know, my values and what really is important, you know, makes me tick, you know. And so I decided, you know, that I was going to start sharing with them my perspective, you know, and you know, the reality of, you know, what science says and all that. And I think that was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back of, you know, all the other things that my ex and I had going on in terms of our marriage. So, yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, he is like one of the worst apologetics.
Oh my God.
Lee Strobel and I go back a while.
You want to hear something funny about Lee Strobel? Is that the very first person that I met when I got involved with Sunday Assembly Nashville is this my buddy Adam, right? And we started comparing stories, and he led a Bible study at his church on Lee Strobel, and he had the exact same experience. Like, this is horseshit. And so he left, and then we met one other person. So we have like the kill list of how many people Lee Strobel has driven out of religion or Christianity because he's so awful.
Josh McDowell actually did it for me. Part of it.
Wow.
But it was Lee Strobel. I did a critique on Case for Christ, and Robert Price has one too, which is pretty good. And it's just like. What baffles my mind is the other apologetics people who use his fucking argument, and it's
is it the liar lunatic or Lord or something?
Yeah.
No, that's actually C.S. Lewis. That's where that comes from.
But the whole like Lee Strobel said he was an atheist. I'm like,
you believe that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
His whole thing is
I'm also Oprah.
Yeah. Make it damn fine, Oprah.
Surrounds the whole resurrection story, and it's like the quote evidence he uses is just so bizarre, and it's like it does not. I mean, it doesn't even stand up to minimal So it's funny that you mentioned Lee Strobel, because it's like I know a buttload of people who left religion because of Lee Strobel. But for me, it was Josh McDowell. Yeah. Josh McDowell did it. He's a little bit before Lee Strobel did it for, started that path for me. But,
yeah, I'm right in there with you. I think 2 or 3 times since I've gotten Lee Strobel books or videos from people trying to convert me back, and it's just like, nah, it's not happening. So
yeah, they'd have better luck with me with C.S. Lewis.
That's
nice.
A popular tactic. You're not the first person who's like, yeah, and then my mom sent me a Lee Strobel book, and
wow.
So now, what are the kids like now? Are they kind of gotten used to the fact that Dad's different than everybody else we know?
Yeah, they're kind of in the thick of it because, I mean, where we are surrounded, like everybody in their lives except me is Christian. Like pretty much like they just the circumstances of the divorce. The court ordered me to send my kids to a private Christian school, believe it or not. So I'm paying private tuition to send my kids to school where they're learning, like I'm helping my kids learn their Bible verses and they're learning Noah's Ark. It's just so infuriating. And the judge's kids go there too, by the way. And it's just a whole messed up situation. But so basically, like their church, their community, they were homeschooled for a while and now they're not. It's like everybody except me. So it's really been kind of like an uphill thing of, getting them around some of my friends in Nashville and, realizing just what an amazing group of people, the circle of friends that I'm fortunate to have in Nashville that, I think as they grow older, they'll be able to look back and say, yeah, wow, those people are really cool. That just at this young age to be able to see that there is an alternative, which is something that I never had. I was in my late 20s before I even, even knew what an atheist was really, so
voice in this.
Yeah.
Well,
we're not
good thing at least.
Yeah. We're not doing crazy stuff, we're living the life and being the best people we can be, just like anybody else. So
we only eat babies on special holidays, right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
So, I met somebody in a discussion that actually believes we eat babies.
Oh, I have too.
I'm hoping the guy was just being a dickweed, but it's in the crazy group.
Oh, so no telling.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. I even say, even though I'm not 100% vegan anymore, but I said, well, this atheists don't eat babies because I'm vegan. I mean, I only
it's a good way to clarify.
I barely eat. It's like, and he goes, well, then you're not an atheist. I'm like, oh, I left that conversation after that. I was like, and then another girl who was atheist and was actually a vegan chimed in and said, well, I'm atheist and I am vegan. Because I messaged her and I said, I'm really not vegan per se, but I don't eat a lot of meat. I used to be vegan, and it's like, she's like, let me handle it. And it was like, she left the conversation too. It was horrendous. But there are people that believe we actually, as atheists, eat babies.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. What got
I mean, we do. So go ahead.
Oh, exactly. I was going to say, so what got you into the organizing conferences?
Yeah.
Work there.
Oh, geez.
That's a big leap in 5 years.
Yeah, by that point, you're sticking your neck out. I mean, you're no longer laying low, right? I mean, I think it was more of like the thing that where I live here is so insular. And like the whole dynamic of being in a family that was kind of like split, like the culture wars like run right down through the middle of our living room, or used to, and just being in this environment here in Christian County that I just needed an outlet and something to put my energy into. And so what happened was back in like January of 2016, I had just come home not long previously from my final deployment, my final trip. And so I had some time because I was just out processing the Army. And my friend Gail Jordan of Recovering from Religion, she wrote me and a few other people saying, hey, we got David Silverman of American Atheists coming to town, doing like a book tour. Do you guys want to do anything with it? Like, just have like a, a book signing thing, or just to like do a little 1 or 2 hour event. And we're like, yeah, we do. So, we started kind of like making some phone calls and getting a few people from Sunday Assembly and a few other organizations together. And, and by the time a few of the podcasters got a hold of the idea, all of a sudden this little event that we had created on Facebook starts getting like over 100 people responding. It's like, wow, this thing's got legs, and a lot of them are from out of the area, right? And you remember this, Deb, right?
Uh-huh. That's
Yep.
insane to me because so January you got the idea, and the conference was actually the day after my birthday, which was March the 4th.
Right.
So you put all that shit together in like 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was just like a mad sprint to get things, because it's like one thing led to another,
But it was such a, you would never have known that was not only your first conference, but that you had put that together in 6 weeks. I mean, I know not you had a group of people that you
were. Yeah, it was a whole group. Yeah.
But still, damn, like that was very well done. And the kicker was that it was free. And
yeah, that was cool.
Not only was it free to go in and see some really well done presentations and workshops, but you fed us dinner too. I was bored by this because now at that point I'd been to 2 or 3 conferences. I'd been to Reason Con, and I'd been to the Reason. Did I have been to Reason Rally yet? I don't know. But I've been to a couple in Toronto and whatnot. And to me, it was very well put together, very professional or organized affair. I mean, you had drinks and snacks all afternoon. There was, donuts and muffins and things, and a good bunch of vendors even, and 5 bands to top it all off in 6 weeks. Like that's
yeah. Yeah, it was really cool the way that it come together, just because, like you're saying, there's just a whole lot of enthusiasm, and it was like the perfect storm because like a lot of the conferences weren't happening that year because of Reason Rally going on. So we just happened to be at a time where there wasn't a whole lot other events going on. And so people came from like a 6-state region surrounding the area, right? And I think just throwing this thing together, we would have been happy if like 200 people had shown up, right? Delighted if 300 people had shown up. Well, 400 people eventually showed up, and it's just like, wow, this thing's got legs, and part of the deal is, go ahead.
3 of us from Ontario.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Because so Gail's friends from Sarnia, whom I've now met at several events, none of which were in Canada.
Yeah.
And because I remember you guys were doing the old so who's here from this far away and that far away, and they were like, oh, we're a shoo-in, we're gonna win this, and I was like, no, I'm further. But then there was some guy from Toronto, and Toronto was 64 miles further away than me. I was like, damn it.
Jeez, wow, that's impressive.
And I never did meet the Toronto guy, actually, but I already knew Gail's friends because I had met them at Reason Con the year before.
Is it Bob Barnes, something like that?
Yeah,
is that who it was?
Yeah,
okay, yeah.
And I had met Bob. I hadn't met his wife because she had been off doing something or napping or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, hey, Bob, it's you again. He's like, well, what do you know? Like,
how cool is that?
Sarnia, oh lordy, I've never actually been to where they live. It's
it's right outside of Toronto, is it not?
No,
or right in Montreal. Where is it?
No. If you're thinking of the pointy triangle, they would be at the top corner.
I mean, it is just a random thing, but like I think my ex-girlfriend's family is from right there. It's like not far from the border, right?
Yes.
Okay,
but, the border up in, I think it's Michigan, but
yeah, exactly.
I'm closer to Toronto by quite a bit.
Okay, very cool.
From Toronto, I'm like 90 minutes from Buffalo.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, 3 hours to Detroit, 90 minutes to Buffalo. So,
but I mean, it just floors me every year that you guys are like, people from Canada, from just all over the East Coast are coming in. It's just like, how cool is that people are willing to to drive and go through that kind of a hike just to hang out with fellow heathens. It's really cool. Just
we're driving this year. In fact, we're picking up Beth in Pennsylvania.
Oh, cool.
We're road tripping it down this time. Last time I flew, it was like the week before my birthday. I'm like, so who wants to buy plane tickets for my birthday?
Hell yeah!
Well,
you guys get situated with the hotels and all that. So
yeah.
Okay, right on.
We haven't got that far yet this time, but
okay, cool.
Soon. What was
well,
that?
I think what's attractive. I was gonna say what's attractive to me. Like I wanted to go to to the ones before, but because of health issues and money issues, I couldn't. And luckily, my taxes came in time this year, so I can do it. And it's the cost.
Yeah.
Theoretically, even coming from Pennsylvania, I could, if I drove, which I don't, I could drive down for the day and go back that night. And it's still doable. But what makes it doable is the fact that you've been able to keep the cost of the overall conference itself down.
Yes.
Like there's a conference, and I'm not knocking the bigger conferences at all, because I would love to go to the American Atheist one with Hugh Laurie, or, well, it doesn't necessarily have to even be him, but I can't afford $295.
Yeah.
I mean, my shoes cost $120, and it takes me 6.5 months to save up money.
Yeah.
So being able to keep the costs down for people like me that are on fixed income, and even though I work, I'm literally on a fixed income. I know exactly what I'm going to make during the month. So I think that's attractive, but you've been able to pack in a lot of, I don't know if topics is the right word, but a lot of different speakers. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to pull it off, but I think there's all but one speaker I don't want to listen to.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
So it's like,
and that's
it's like
workshops and stuff. So what have you, which is not different about your conferences, is that you put workshops in the middle of the day, which I think breaks it up really nicely. Now, actually, last time yours was the only one I went to, because I ran into Dave in the cafeteria and I spent the whole next hour talking to him instead. So
funny.
Yeah. Good though.
We're going to do it a little bit differently. In the sense that this time workshops are going to be in the morning and roll in through the afternoon. Okay. And then in the afternoon that we're going to have more like kind of like a TED Talk style, 18 minutes, but we're going to have several going at the same time. So it's sort of like going to be a pick your own adventure thing, and to what you were saying earlier, Beth, in terms of like, just being able to keep the costs down. We try to make it like a regional thing to where we only have one, maybe two people that we will fly in or bring in from outside of the region, just to kind of like not only keep the costs down, but also to kind of grow local leaders and grow our local community, to be able to, get people to, if they have a content or a project or something that they're passionate about, to be able to give them a chance to put it in front of other people. And, that's how you get to know, who we have locally.
Well, I think that's important too, because and I'm not knocking anybody here when I say this, is that it gives the no names a chance to become names. I mean,
absolutely.
I went to Reason Con with Deb 2 years ago, and it's the first atheist conference I've been to.
Nice.
And what I'm breaking up.
No. It's only 1 year ago.
Oh, was it a year ago?
Only, not even yet. Not till June, dear.
This year's been kind of a blur.
Nice.
But
I remember.
There were speakers there that, both name and I'm going to say no name, who are now named Kelly.
Oh, cool, yeah.
But to hear Kelly speak, at the time, she was just rising up. And I think that's what's important within our movement. And I hate using that word, but people with a lesser name, so to speak, than like Seth Andrews and Matt Dillahunty and Arn, who I happen to like all three. it gives them a chance, and like you said, it promotes, you know, leadership within the. I wish, because where I live, I'm probably the only atheist.
Yeah, I hear you.
And it's like, yeah, no. I mean, I have a couple friends that claim atheism, but they're more spiritual, but not religious. But then they go for the woo.
Gotcha.
The spiritual woo. And it's like, no, you're not an atheist. But, you know, I'm not going to get into that discussion. But it's like, so,
yeah, I hear you.
Like here, I have nothing now. There's the group out of Philly, but Philly's 5 hours away. There's a group in Bradford, but Bradford's like an hour away, and I have no way there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, actually, one of our guests is coming down from Allentown. Is Fernando Alcantar. You know, he's one of the speakers and presenters. But it's sort of like what you're talking about. That part of the thing that we've kind of trying to design into the way we run the conference is to be able to keep it at a low price. You know, because you know, right now up until the end of the month, you know, our prices are $15. Which is like the cost of a movie in some theater, you know what I mean? And then it'll go to $20, which is still very affordable, even for like a college student for a full day of programming. You know, I mean, we want it to be, like you're saying, you know, most people are in the same boat that you and I are. We're not going to drop $200-300 for a major national convention, you know, and the cost of travel and hotel, you know, so we want to make it affordable so that the person who is not an activist, is not plugged in, is not like committed to the secular thing. They maybe just really, maybe they don't have a religion that they identify with, and they just kind of want to check out what this whole secular, you know, atheist thing is all about. We hope that they can be, you know, that we can be kind of like a approachable place for them to kind of like try it on for size, you know what I mean? Like, and what really motivates me and fires me up is those people at the conference every year that come up to me and say, oh yeah, this is the first time that I've ever come out to an atheist or secular event, and I love it, you know, just being able to hang out with other people that are like me, especially a lot of these people coming like you are, you know, and me from small towns. That's what really motivates me, is to be able to be an approachable first entry point into the broader movement. So
well, I think that's more of an issue in your neck of the woods for sure, because that's something I noticed a big difference of being up here. Nobody really gives a shit if you're atheist or not. Like, and I've spent some time down in Georgia with Bobby and Ashley, and you know, we've spent some time in the Carolinas, driving around and whatnot, and you get that sort of, nobody's asked me, but you get that sort of, well, what church do you go to kind of thing.
oh yeah.
Nobody would ask that here. That would be the last thing anybody would ask up here. It would be, they would ask you what hockey team you cheer for before they ask you what church you go to. So
yeah, nobody asks me anymore.
Well,
Yeah,
they all know. But
they all know, huh?
Down there, it is so pervasive.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that we started doing this show when Cash was unable to continue with the original Atheists on Air. There were so many people that he would talk to in the chat every week that said, what am I going to do? This is my only bit of sanity I get with normal people all week, you know, and so
they hang out with 3 insane women.
There you go.
There is that, but
yeah, that's a great way to spend your night.
But I know Patrick's time is limited, so give us, you know, your sales pitch for the conference before you go, please, and tell us the highlights and all of that.
Yeah, well, 2 things are cool this year. Number one, like I was saying, we have such a variety of workshops and topics. Like, you know, I think we're like pushing 17 workshops now, and like speakers running concurrently. So it really is kind of like a pick your own adventure. And we want to be kind of like a homey, fun, approachable, like, you know, for example, we're having a pizza party and an ice cream social, you know, at the dinner, just so everybody can, you know, hang out and not drop a minor fortune on a catered meal, you know, just kind of like be informal and have fun and hang out. And then we'll have like, you know, an after party, comedians, and go to a restaurant, you know, it's just kind of fun. And, you know, but you kind of get to do it your way, like find a topic that you're interested in. And the other thing that's cool about this year is that for the first time, we're doing a theme. And this year, our theme, anybody who's been to the website, you can see is the nano consensual, which that theme is kind of like taking off, a starting point from like the Me Too movement and the women's marches, and certainly some of the stuff that's been going on, certainly with the Trump administration, and even within the secular community, certainly we have our share of trouble. And even recently, just this issue that's come up with, Lawrence Krauss, that, it's sort of like we have to, on one hand, have good procedures in place of how we figure out what's what, but at the same time, make sure that we really create a culture where everyone feels safe, and that that we do have a good culture of like respect and boundaries, and just letting people be and enjoy a conference without unwanted attention and just some of that stuff that happens at secular events. So this was kind of Elliot Cantor's idea. Him and Gail, they've been in the secular movement a long time, and they've seen all kinds of stuff, and so they just kind of wanted to take a stand and say, this is what we're about, and this is the culture that we're trying to create. And I'm sorry, can you still see me?
No.
Yeah, sorry. Here, let me jump back here for you. Just hit my the video screen here. But yeah, so anyways, just trying to here, let me get this screen. Just wanting to have a theme this year that would say, this is what we're about. And so a lot of the content is about people, about boundaries, and us men doing what we have to do to kind of unfuck ourselves, and how we respond to the Me Too movement, and that whole piece. And then there's also another component of it that's very much into sex positivity, and we have several workshops, like a couple. Go ahead.
You might need a fan for some of those workshops. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there's some groups. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Got some groups locally here in Nashville.
Daryl Ray in the house. How could it not get a little steamy with Daryl Ray in the house? I mean, come on.
Yes, he's doing a talk like kinks and fetishes and all that good stuff. So it's going to be definitely interesting.
2 different talks about kinks going on, so you can definitely bring your kink with you.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, no, we're not, we're just letting people talk about how they live their lives, and just trying to open topics for conversation that you wouldn't really hear at too many conferences here in this part of the country, and so, yeah, just making it a place where people can talk.
I don't mean to sound condescending, but I just have a feeling that your average Tennessean doesn't know what a paraphilia is. I'm just going to say, I did a paper on paraphilia in university, so.
Well, come to NaNo Con and find out.
Exactly. People used to steal my textbooks when I was writing that paper for some reason.
Oh, how funny.
But yeah, you've got a full schedule and things going on here. It looks pretty.
Yeah. I mean, if people haven't been to the website yet, we're at nanocon.info, or also known as Nashville Nones, NONES.com. So, but nanocon.info will get you there.
It's linked in the show description.
Awesome. Yeah, just check it out. And, the video on the homepage is a lot of fun. And, it's like we want to approach some serious topics and kind of go there, so to speak. But at the same time, we want to keep it playful and, just kind of mixing the educational piece, but also having some fun with it. So, yeah, it's going to be a really cool con, and I'm looking forward to it. And, I'm looking forward to learning some stuff. So it's going to be cool.
Yeah. And I actually will be able to coax my husband to come back at the end for probably the pizza party, but and the comedians is for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that we're trying this year. So
he's gonna go.
I'm interested how he likes it.
He's gonna go to some car museum during the day. He's a I would call an apatheist Buddhist.
Nice.
Doesn't actually care if there's a God or not, but he does practice some, I would call it light Buddhism, because he only goes to the temple once a month. But
gotcha.
Yeah, but he's gonna go and do some touristy things while we're busy atheisting.
Yeah, that's cool. Nashville is definitely good for that. But if he comes and hang out,
That's why I encouraged him to come this time, because I usually go to these things by myself, but he did come to Reason Rally because he could go to the Air and Space Museum while we were busy atheisting. So,
well, yeah, and there's going to be several things that are going to be cool. Matt Dillahunty has for years done magic, and so he's going to be doing a magic show to kind of wrap up the evening, which we're really looking forward to.
He did it in Toronto this past summer, and it's awesome. It's
very cool. I've never seen him do his magic show on a larger level like that. I mean, he is literally he flew up last time. He is driving up his pickup truck this year so that he can bring more of his magic stuff and his props and stuff. So it's really going to be cool.
We'll see more then, because he flew to Toronto, obviously. So
nice.
Oh, this will definitely be. He's pretty darn good for being an amateur at that.
Yeah, well, he's been at it for a while, and he takes it pretty seriously. And something else we're doing that this year is going to be cool is Camp Quest. Amy Monsky is coming in, and we're doing like a day camp for kids. And it's not just going to be like sitting around and watching movies. I mean, they're bringing like 3D printers and all like dissecting like pellets, owl pellets, and all these things. So we're gonna have some fun with it.
I think that's one thing that caught my eye when I was looking through. Obviously, I'm not going to go to the camp class, but I find it enhancing that you are having activity for the kids, because I know, like, within some of my circle of friends, is that, not that they're atheists, but they can't go and do anything because what are they going to do with the kids?
Right.
So here, you have something for the kids, and I think that's really, really pretty awesome.
Yeah, we just don't want it to be a limiting factor,
I'm just thinking, damn, I'm short enough. Could I pass for 7 to whatever so I could play with the 3D printer? I'm not saying owl pellets, but the 3D printer sounds fun.
Well, if you want to come volunteer for an hour or two down there, I mean, that's something that, I think they definitely would appreciate, if you want to come in there, and they're actually going to have 2 3D printers, so it's going to be really cool. Come hang out.
That might be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Making slime too. That I might be able to get into.
I'll find playing with the kids.
Right. Have fun with it.
Yeah, that's so weird though. You could go from like a workshop on king and then go volunteer and babysit. But,
that's right.
Exactly.
A little something for everybody. So.
Well, Patrick, anything else you want to add? Because I know you were saying your time a bit limited tonight.
Yeah, it is. No, that's it. I mean, thank you so much for having us. And again, it never ceases to amaze me, people coming from all over the place. And, I really do hope that people come out and enjoy NaNo Con this year, just because, again, it's kind of topical, but we have so much going on that check out the website. And I think people are going to, have a lot of fun. And, it's important. In times like these, it's more important than ever to stay connected, to get plugged in, to make those personal connections and network, and build each other up and be each other's support. Because as we know, these are kind of crazy times, and so it's now more important than ever to build those connections and be there for each other. Plus, it's a hell of a lot of fun. So we just hope if you've never been to NaNo Con before and you're anywhere within the region to come check it out. Do it. You won't regret it. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And there's a podcasting panel too with some of my friends.
Yes. And hope you get to come down there and check it out and hang out with some of your buddies. It's always a lot of fun.
I think I know all but 2 of them.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. All
Good
right.
deal.
Well, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight, Patrick. We appreciate it as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's such an honor. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's that soon. Damn.
All right. Less than 3 weeks. So March 17, come check it out.
Yeah, it's St. Patty's. I'll have to pack some green something.
That's right.
We'll find something green, Beth.
Yeah, and I'm Irish.
There you go. Hey, why not?
Very Scottish, but I do have some Irish in there somewhere. So, anyway, have yourself a great night, Patrick.
You too. Nice talking with you. See you soon.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
So, yeah, there is some definite hot and steamy workshops going on there.
You know what I'll be avoiding?
We've got how humanist values can improve your sex life. We've got embracing your fetish. Then we've got sociosexual orientation, explaining the mystery of kinks to fetishes. So there's lots of we've got sex, God, and other unsatisfied desires. And I haven't even found Daryl Ray yet.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, like, for a person like me, I'm not into that. Well,
No.
Yeah. So, but I think it's important that they have stuff like that, because I do know a couple of my friends here have actually asked me questions along that line, and I'm like, you know, one being gay and then two being an atheist are like, well, so, you know, that's the kind of things to answer those questions.
Does that mean that you just know everything about kinks then? Is that it?
No, I know nothing.
Or Morgan, is it that bisexual folks, you know all the kinks? Is that how that works?
It depends on what kind of bisexual you are. Hashtag not all bisexuals. But I really want to figure out a way to go.
I know. I
really do.
Too.
I really do.
Morgan, if you get there, I will buy your ticket.
All right. Well, I'll figure out a way to. I'll see if I can figure out a way to go, and maybe I can get an Airbnb or something.
Yeah. Well, you could share a room with us.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's only like 4 hours away.
Yeah.
You get there, you're covered, girl.
We share a room with Beth anyway. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they won't be fucking, so I hope.
Better hope not. I don't know. They said there were rooms available with suites on the list, so that had an extra pull-out bed. So we could.
Hey, I'd be willing to sleep on the floor if it meant she could come. I sleep on the floor now, so.
We will. You know what? Bring all your damn books with you and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an ethical person. Come on.
Yeah, it's just weird because apparently not. I'll have to take it again.
The listeners won't know the story, but Morgan's ethics exam that she wrote back in November, she passed it perfectly fine, but they changed the threshold like 2 weeks ago or something stupid, and basically said, "Oh, well, you passed then, but now you fail." And she has to do it again.
So I have to do it again, and it's literally the Saturday after NaNo Con.
So you spend that week studying your fucking ass off.
Come chill out that weekend and study your ass off some more the week after.
Make it a study break. I mean, it's only one day.
Yeah, that is true.
You come, you enjoy, you sleep, you go home.
Yeah, I think I'll figure out a way to make that work.
I think you should.
Sweet.
And I was just looking. Guess who is now on the podcasters panel?
Who?
Miss Riss.
Yay!
Oh, yeah, I know. Tucker's on there too, isn't he?
Yeah, I knew Tucker would be, but and Mr. Zach, of course. They've added Riss and Zach to the.
Oh, cool.
I'm like, I haven't seen Riss since last year, so we got to make this work, ladies.
We will.
We could have the show of us there.
Well, I think, and it goes to the point that Patrick brought up about the networking. And for me, because I don't get out much, I mean, yes, I'm actually leaving my little hole here. But I think that's important. Not just, I mean, I see you, you know, when you come down to a conference, but I've seen Morgan once.
Yeah.
You know, so, and like, I'll get to actually meet Riss. I mean, yeah, she was at Reed. I was too sick and shit, and she was bebopping around. I, you know, trying to track her down, you know, it just didn't work, but it's just like, and I think that's important.
Oh, for sure. Well, this time I will drag you to see her and be like, Marissa, now talk.
Well, for me, it's like, I think what Riss does and what Kelly does are so important, and I think what all of us do. But I for some reason, I'm especially drawn to what Riss does with the trans community and what Kelly does, and their openness and willingness to share their experiences. I think is phenomenal because, I mean, growing up for me, I mean, I questioned when I was younger whether I, you know, was in the wrong body. My sole mentor, so to speak, was Renee Richards. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And for those that don't remember, Renee Richards was the tennis player that was friends with Martina Navratilova. And the only lesbian icon was Martina.
Right.
So I think for the younger generation now, to have somebody like Kelly, to have somebody like Riss, and the others that are out there that I can't think of all their names because there's quite a few of them now. I think what they're doing is important. Even Morgan with Bi Skeptical Podcast, I think that's important.
Well, and actually, Trav is going to be there giving their talk.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Trav. You know, I think I don't completely understand it. I'll be the first to admit. But this is the way you learn. And even at, you know, soon to be 54, I'm still learning. And I hope I never stop.
Well, and to that point, one of the other listed speakers is Dr. Marissa Richmond, who is the founder of the Tennessee Transgender Political Coalition. So that's someone who I have not met from the community that I think would be very intriguing to as well. And another one that I'm excited about is going to see Anthony Magnavosco and learning some street epistemology.
Yeah, I'm actually game for that one. I'm kind of curious, even though I'm not the debater like you are, and I really have to think about where my response is. Maybe I can pick up a few hints.
Yeah, to me, I think that if anybody's still supporting Trump, I'm like, they're a lost cause. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I had a conversation, was it yesterday or the day before, and I don't even remember what it was on. And I don't even know if it was male or female, so we'll say it. About a third of the way through the conversation brings up, oh, well, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm like, oh, see you, bye. I ended the conversation right there. Yeah. And he's like, why? And I'm like, I said, you just said you support Trump. That means you have absolutely no rational thinking capacity whatsoever. So anything I say is pointless.
You're beyond hope.
Yeah, and that's what I said to it. I was like, you're beyond hope. Yeah. I'm sorry. If you have an inkling, I said, let's get rid of Russiagate, okay? I don't even consider that in anything because there's just so many if, ands, and oh my gods in there. Like, okay. I'm sorry, but grab him by the pussy, the first thing he pissed me off about, that stuck with me. I'm sorry. No. It's like, if you think that is normal behavior, you're screwed in the head. And I said, if you support that, no. I'm sorry, that's not how you treat somebody, whether male or female.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's like, what
It's
if,
like,
do you really think that if some person came up to Trump and grabbed him by the dick that he wouldn't freak out?
oh my God, he'd have a lawsuit down your throat so fast you wouldn't know it. You'd make your head spin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like, and that's the thing. I mean,
one of his lawyers wouldn't be able to sue you because he just pled guilty, but
yeah. But
slight detail.
I mean, it's just anything with. I mean, the sexual accusations, whether they are true or not, is besides the point. The fact that he's even being accused, and he's not being accused because he's President Donald Trump. He's being accused
from
because
long ago too.
Yeah, these are
decades.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly he fucked a Playboy bunny.
2 of them.
Two. Oh, it's up to 2 now. I must have.
It's up to 2 now. They keep getting. So he's saying that no political funds went to basically pay off his porn star, and so the argument is his personal lawyer paid off Stormy Daniels the first one, $130,000 out of, I guess, his own pocket. You know, as you do. I was never. Must have missed that lecture in law school where they teach you to pay out $130,000 of your personal checking account to pay off who your client's having an affair with.
Oh, who does
like,
that?
He just did that out of the goodness of his heart. Like, really? Really?
What kills me, but just the accusations, and it's. I thought it was only one. I must have confused the 2 together and morphed.
Well, he's also terrified of sharks too. That was the funniest thing that came out about that. Was that so they were watching. Him and Stormy Daniels were watching Shark Week, right? And he keeps talking about how much he hates sharks and how he's like terrified of sharks. So I'm like, well, I found a new favorite animal.
I've always liked sharks, but it just is. It's mind-boggling that anybody can support that. And then I'll try to avoid getting too political. But then you got like the Roy Moores and the people supporting him. It's like,
has he even conceded?
No, he has not. I'm still
he just
following
endorsed somebody.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, he just endorsed that knucklehead from Missouri. I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Oh fuck!
But he's a Looney Tune.
But I think what blows my mind, and like these side story things I follow, but I don't follow. It's not something that you're going to see me post about unless it's something like extravagant. It's like the women.
Yeah.
I should put a caveat. The Republican or GOPT women supporting these people.
Well, and Roy Moore is white. He's whacked. Like,
oh, she's just as whacked as he is.
Jews!
Jews! You got yourself a Jew?
And what's hilarious is that Jewish lawyer, they hired him one time to do some criminal defense work when their son got in trouble, and he apparently is like really, really close friends of Doug Jones and fundraised for Doug Jones.
Mm-hmm.
The one Jew they knew was a huge Doug Jones supporter and personal friend of his.
Damn, I hadn't heard that. I just knew that a hard time finding the Jewish lawyer.
Yeah, you can't be anti-Semitic if you hire a Jewish lawyer, apparently.
Is that like having a black friend, I think?
Yeah, it's like having a black friend, or it literally, I wanted to be like, I want the next sentence out of her mouth to be like, I also have my Jewish lawyer was talking to my black friend the other day, and he said, blah, blah, blah. Like,
I just find it mind blowing.
A person over for lunch afterwards, right?
Yeah, seriously.
It's crazy. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and he's an older gentleman. He's, I want to say, damn near close to 80, and it was really disheartening to me because I've been through this myself. Is that he's so fed up with the way things are going the political atmosphere, the racism, and all the other isms, and he's about ready to give up. And I'm like, yeah, I've been there, and I think what's heartened me coming out of the Parkland, Florida tragedy, the shooting, is that we got to be there for those kids.
Those kids are amazing.
Yeah. And that's the next generation. That's who we need to be supporting.
There's hope.
Yeah, there's just that little, and that's what I cling to, because it's like, I said to Deb earlier, I said, I can't, as much as I may want to, get behind different issues that are present, because right now my issue is, am I going to have fucking health insurance in a month? Because if I lose my health insurance, I'm dead. And I don't I mean literally dead, because my medications are life-sustaining medications. Without my high blood pressure medications, I'm going to stroke out again. Now they're fighting SNAP. They want to do this harvest basket of sending you canned food. I don't eat canned food.
Well, and that's the thing.
Or canned meat. I don't really eat meat. If I do, occasionally I will have pork, maybe once a month. I might have a hamburger or two once or twice a month, but mostly, I eat chicken, I eat seafood, I eat shrimp. It's like harvest box would kill me. It's like, I don't eat box products. I don't.
Yeah, that's your goal. It's to shame poor people and to say, we don't trust you at the grocery store, so here's your shitty food. And because, they get mad whenever poor people, I notice they get mad whenever poor people buy, like snacks, like God forbid you ever had a snack. And then they get mad when poor people buy things like steak, because there's this idea that poor people aren't allowed to enjoy anything. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck what they spend it on. I would rather them have food.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so annoying.
But if you are a person who is getting SNAP and you spend your limited funds on something that is really beyond your means, what's going to happen is you won't have food for the last week and a half of your allotted time. So only somebody who doesn't care about starving for a week or two would ever do that. Like, so the amount of money being consumed is not greater because somebody managed to find a steak for half price, or decided, you know what, I want to spend half of my allowance on expensive food right now and fuck the rest of the month or whatever. They're not being charged as a taxpayer any more money if those people do that.
Well, they know that.
I found this out today. I was doing some background reading, and they don't even have the shipping or the distribution cost figured into the total cost of the program. So they're saying they're going to save $319 million, in the next 10 years. No, you're not, because you got to pay for it. You got to pay for shipping. I ain't going to fucking pay for it.
In fact, what's going to happen?
It's going to fuck the local farmers, too.
Farmers. It's going to fuck places like
grocery stores.
Walmart.
Walmart's going to lose a fifth of its revenues if they do this.
And they're going to end up with more costs because they haven't figured out the logistics. And what's likely to happen is some of that stuff, they can't get everything to be non-perishable. It's just not possible. So there's going to be food wastage that wasn't there before because people could go and buy things when they need it. So you can't, And
dietary concerns too. Like, it doesn't take into account if you're diabetic or if you're vegan or if you have to eat like a low sodium diet. Or a lot of those canned foods are not going to be low sodium or diabetic friendly.
To understand.
No, none of them are.
I know a lot of these assholes really don't care if poor people die, but what they don't understand is if you feed and honestly, I'm a prime example because I have kind of an eating disorder where I have a texture problem with food. And the most majority of what I've been able to eat is shitty processed stuff. And so what's the consequences of that? I have diabetes, I have high blood pressure, I'm overweight, and my health is shitty because I ate shitty food my whole life. And now that's partly my fault. I mean, I can't control that the things that I can't eat make me sick or whatever. That's a whole other issue. But if you're feeding people shit food, they're going to have more health problems. And if they can't afford insurance, you fuckers are going to pay for it. And so,
well, and that was a conversation I had with somebody the other day, and this person's a diehard Republican, and I said, "Do you realize if we go to these boxes, it'll kill me?" I said, "I don't eat this crap." I said, "I have a friend who gets a food pantry box, and the stuff she don't use, she gives to me because in an emergency, I will use it." She gives me about 2 file boxes of food every 2 months. That's how much of that food box she doesn't use. As a person that's diabetic, should I be eating this stuff? No. There's, stuffing, pasta. I don't eat, I occasionally eat pasta, but pasta's verboten for me. But it's just crazy. And those are the issues that I have to focus on, where everybody else can focus on other issues. And exactly. I think that's why these conferences are important, because these other issues get brought to the fore.
Just wanted to say hi quickly to Nicola, who's joining us from Tim Hortons in Saskatchewan.
I want a donut.
No.
Honey crullers. Those are the things. But no, they don't give a fuck about people's health. They don't give a fuck about anything to do with people who aren't in their sphere. In fact, I think, honestly, there are a number of them that would be perfectly happy if more people died.
Yeah.
Poor people. Because then they don't have to deal with them, or they don't have to, figure out how to take care of anybody, because they don't give a fuck about anybody but themselves.
Well, yeah, but it's like I said the other. It's like I said in my status the other day, and I think I don't know if you commented or you liked it or something. I said, I feel like a cockroach about ready to be stomped everywhere I turn. I mean, financially, I'm not great, but I'm okay. I can pay my rent. I do get SNAP, so I'm okay food-wise, but sometimes I fuck it up and end up having to eat ramen, even though I shouldn't. But I know people worse off than me.
Yep.
And it's very annoying, especially when I know there's kids involved. I'm talking toddler kids. Mm-hmm. It's like, but these people that, quote, 2 Thessalonians 3:10, he that don't work shouldn't eat. And that's not the context of the whole verse, but they don't, it's like you said, Deb, they don't give a shit. It's like, you're just a cockroach. We're just cockroaches that need to be stomped on.
And I think now we have seen, and I think they've really fucked themselves over, because they cannot bring out the children bullshit anymore. Because we have seen, like, I don't know why this didn't happen after Sandy Hook, but we could see they don't give a fuck about kids. In fact, I'm just going to share a cartoon that came across my news feed today that sums it up quite well.
I mean, babe,
for those who are listening, it's the GOP elephant who's in Florida, and there's a young teenager holding a sign that says "do something," and the caption is "Scram, kid. If you're not in the womb, it's not our job to protect you."
And for those that don't know, what it's referring to is a day or two after the Parkland shooting, where 17 students and teachers were killed, Florida held a vote concerning weapons. I can't remember exactly which kind, so I'm just going to say weapons. And they voted that porn was a danger to this. Yeah,
porn is a public health risk,
but not AR-15s.
15s. Yeah. Because and it wasn't even a law.
Porn killed 17 people apparently.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't even a law about restricting guns. It was a motion to talk about it, to fucking talk about it, and they voted that down.
Yeah, the Republican legislature in Florida is really, really something else. But now apparently the governor has moved a little bit and is saying that he wants it to be where you have to be 21 to buy a firearm of any kind. But then there's the whole thing where the governor and the legislature can't get on the same page because the legislatures wanted to push this dumbass, like, let's arm the teachers, who that idea is to do two things. This whole arm the teachers bullshit. It's to, number one, it's to put money in the pocket of the gun manufacturers, because that is who the NRA represents. They do not represent gun owners. They don't give a fuck. They represent gun manufacturers, and so that is why if you will watch anything having to do with the NRA, they try and scare people into buying guns. That's their whole thing, because they don't have Obama anymore, so now they're having to say it's, Antifa and the resistance and Hillary Clinton and Obama somehow, or teaming up to, run the deep state and all that shit. And I'm like, I wish. I'd feel probably a lot better. But government. But yeah, and the second one is it's to distract from the argument of doing gun control. It's to move the argument away from maybe we should be banning these guns, maybe we should be doing these background checks more, maybe we should be doing this or that. Instead, we're arguing about this dumb idea about whether or not to give a teacher who can't even figure out how to run a PowerPoint a fucking Glock or not. And also, it's just going to be, and what I immediately thought of was, I was like, how many kids of color are going to get shot by their teachers because their teachers fear for their lives?
Could you?
I had one of my high school teachers today in a posting on Facebook state when she was an assistant principal, she could envision herself once or twice, possibly, and she's never ever came across as this type of person to me, that if she had a gun, she might have used it.
Holy shit.
And this is and my chemistry teacher in high school, now all my teachers in high school that I can remember, I would not hesitate with them owning a gun. Having it in school might be a different situation. And I went to predominantly all-white school. We had a couple, I'm going to say token blacks, because it's just the way they came. I'm not them, but the way how they were integrated came across. Mm-hmm. And this is back in the 70s, early 80s. So yeah, got to consider the time period. But that's really scary, hearing it from somebody that you think because, for a teacher to admit. There was another teacher that I'm acquainted with who said, I've knocked myself out jumping off a chair to demonstrate something, physics lesson. And she burned herself on a Bunsen burner. Please don't give me a fucking Glock. I mean, the teachers
they won't fund them to educate. They won't give them pencils or supplies. But yeah, we got money for guns now, though.
Well, what I would like to know, let's say they go ahead with this and they, pass the bills that teachers should be on. Who exactly is going to pay for their training, and how long is this training going to be? Because most of the people that I know that are highly trained in weapons have spent 3-4 years getting to that point.
Yeah, and it's also, if you look at who is going to want to be a teacher after
Yeah.
that. It's going
Well,
to want to be, it's the same thing with police. You know, you're going to have this issue where the good teachers who know, hey, I should probably not be having a Glock in my desk because something might happen. Somebody might take it. Somebody, you know, it might actually go off. Or I don't trust myself. And then now there's going to be a bunch of assholes who can't wait to blow somebody away wanting to teach in school.
Well, there was a case right after Sandy Hook where a teacher was armed, had their gun on them in the school, and then left it on the toilet.
Yeah, I did. I heard about that because they were like, an armed.
It was about 6 or 7 years ago. I don't remember the entire.
Yeah, a kindergartner found it. So it wasn't even a 15-year-old found it. A kindergartner who could have easily accidentally shot themselves or somebody else.
Well, and then you bring in the whole issue of a child of color. I mean, what's going to happen when you get into some of these schools where racism is an issue?
Where there's been an unruly child in the school who mouths off or whatever, and we've seen the I don't know, what do you guys call them, the cops that are in the school?
The resource officers. Yeah, we got them.
Picking up these poor kids and slamming them on the floor, dragging them around by their hair, and all of this. Like, how many times have we seen that? And now they'll just be like, "Oh, well, I can shoot him now. This is great."
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why, you know, the emotional reaction to it, but seriously, I mean, my brother and my sister-in-law teach in a parochial school, mostly military brats. And, you know, I would hope, I mean, I'm not very close to my brother. I would never hear of my brother or my sister-in-law, something like that happening. But I do know teachers, like some of the teachers I know, right now, I sure as fuck wouldn't want them to have a gun, because they damn well would use it.
Can y'all see the meme I've just posted?
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
This very wholesome looking teacher with a mat behind her. She's pointing a gun and goes, "You better spit that gun out."
I saw that earlier.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and it's like, they don't even, I mean, it's like Morgan said, they don't even want to discuss the issue. I mean, two things that I've noticed is, one, you know, they don't want to discuss it. It's too soon. Well, fuck, how many children and teachers have to be slaughtered before it's not too soon? We've had 6 or 7 years since Sandy Hook.
When you've got shootings happening almost every month, and I mean, some of them now, it's like, well, if it's under 5 people, it doesn't even get national or international coverage. Right? And so you've got that happening almost, you know, I don't know the exact frequently, but a lot. So when is too soon? When it's like, it was almost time to talk about it, but now we've had another one, so we have to wait again.
Well, it's like I said to Chris Rada the other day, we're going to have her back on the show because she did a really good debunking about David Barton's interpretation of the Second Amendment, and I posted the links in our group page for you guys to, because the one article, the main one, is really long, but it's like super detailed. And I said, you know, because of a scheduling conflict, I asked her if we could schedule the week after, which wouldn't be next week, but 2 weeks. And I said, I jokingly said to her, I'm pretty sure it's still going to be relevant because we'll probably have another shooting by then. And she chuckles. She goes, I really shouldn't be laughing about this, but you're right. And that's the thing. It's like every time, like, I've been working on a book now going, since Columbine. And basically, it's the history of, it was supposed to be school violence. And it was getting to be a little unwieldy, so I narrowed it down to just shootings. And I included a couple things like the 1929 Bath bombing, which wasn't done by a student, but it was done by an adult as a tax protest, just because that's the beginning of the modern era, so to speak. But it goes back even into the 1700s. I think there's one from 1600 too. But it's like every time I think I'm getting caught up, I'm like, I gotta add 10 more shootings to the list. It's like I can't even get ahead because there's just so much, and that's just shootings. That's not including the stabbings and the fights and all the other stuff that goes on. That's not gonna be, that I'm not including. But it's like I know when I initially started, and this was, you know, back when Columbine happened, and just for 1 year, including the stabbings and fighting, yada yada, I was up to 10,000 cases. I was like, no, that's not gonna work. The book would be really long.
And I hate the people who say, "Oh, well, he could have done all that with a knife." I'm like, is he a ninja? No, he couldn't have.
No.
Well, I had one guy post an article to the. I might be getting the details wrong, but I think it was in China, and
yeah,
it was a knife attack.
Like 20 people, but that was one dude.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, people are gonna, but they were able to stop him.
Yeah,
And nobody, and if I remember correctly, I don't think anybody died in that. They were wounded.
Yeah.
But it's like,
but
we
no one
have,
died, yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
the thing is, you can barricade yourself away from a fucking knife a hell of a lot easier than you can an AR-15.
Well, any type of weapon. It doesn't necessarily have to be an AR-15, but it's like anything that's in my understanding that, you know, that has, you know, a clip of 9 bullets or a semi-automatic, or, well, I don't think you can get an automatic, so, but it's just like, it's just, it's insane.
You can use a bump stock to basically, that's what the Vegas shooter did, and they're $50 online.
Well, supposedly President Trump's going to ban the bump stocks.
Well, how he's doing it is also very misleading, because he's going to get the ATF to make a decision on it, and they may not have the authority to do that. It may have to be done through legislation. So it's going to be tied up in the courts, and Trump knows, or Trump's cronies, they all know that.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, everybody knows that. It's going to get tied up in the courts, and then he's going to be able to say, "Oh, well, I tried." No, you didn't. You knew that was going to happen.
He made a comment. Let me see if I can find it.
Oh yeah, that he could have gone into the school without a gun and taken down the shooter.
Oh yeah, that
crazy shit.
Oh, and he made this tweet.
That goes right up there with his perfect plan to get rid of ISIS in 100 days or 30 days.
Oh yeah, that never.
He made this tweet the other day. It goes, "What many people do not understand or do not want to understand is that Wayne, Chris, and the folks who work so hard at NRA are great people and great American patriots that love our country and will do the right thing. Make America great." Right below that, well, what I wrote, spoken by the man who, after spending about 1 hour, total with survivors and families, stated, "I will never let you down," when he accepted the NRA endorsement for presidency. So when he was running for president, and he was endorsed by Wayne, Chris, and the folks at the NRA. So with that thing about with the bump stock, who do you think helped him craft that plan?
Oh yeah, they did for sure. And also, but with the thing with the NRA is that they are a bad organization, but I think people make too much of a big deal about the donations they give to politicians, because it's like, I think they would do it for free. Like, honestly, they don't give my senators really that much money. But they have like A+ ratings from the NRA because that's what they believe. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have this belief that, oh, well, secretly deep down they know it's wrong, but they wrote them a check, so that's why they vote this way. And it's like, no, they just don't give a fuck.
Well, I think it goes both ways. Like some of the numbers I've seen, and I've seen some conflicting numbers about the amount that some of these people receive it, and it's not just Republicans.
Well, yeah, be clear on that. They outspend.
I think what's really telling is, and this is something I'm looking into so I can get a clearer picture, because I might make a meme, is that this so-called boycott, these companies that are pulling out of the NRA. What people have to realize is that this is not sponsorship that they're pulling out of. They're pulling out of business ties. And they're still giving money to the NRA as a sponsor of the NRA. So there's a difference. Like with Hertz, it was a deal that they made with the organization to offer their members a special price. So really, in some ways, they're not hurting as bad as it sounds like they're hurting. I mean, it's still not good, but underlying that, these companies I don't know which ones are, that's something I'm trying to find out, are still giving money to the NRA as a sponsor. So it's really a bizarre, this money thing surrounding with the NRA and sponsorship and all this other, it's really bizarre.
Yeah, and FedEx is not budging either, which I find kind of odd.
So what's the deal with FedEx? Because I've been out of the loop with that.
So they are I guess they're in some kind of business relationship with the NRA. I'm not sure. I actually didn't know that they had these kinds of business partnerships until fairly recently. But yeah, so I'm not clear on what exactly their agreement together is, but they are involved in some way. And so people have been calling on these other companies like Hertz, to cancel their discounts to these members, and on banks like I know there's a bank in Omaha to end their relationship. And I mean, NRA, they're representing gun manufacturers. So gun manufacturers, they're very, very powerful people, have lots and lots of money. So it is a big deal in that sense when you get the banks involved, looking at those relationships they have with the gun manufacturers. I know Bank of America right now, they sent out a very corporate statement about it, but they said they're examining their relationship with the NRA and the gun manufacturers. So yeah, it's serious money involved, but FedEx is not budging whatsoever on their relationship in any way with the NRA. And
they're staying attached, is what she's saying.
Yeah, we're staying attached, and I'm just like,
American Airlines is another one. Hertz, National Car Rental, I believe, is
they're
one.
not even bothering to end it superficially, though, is the thing. Because you were saying, Beth, it was they're not ending their sponsorships. They're just ending the special discounts and things they give to members. But with FedEx, it's they're not even bothering to do that.
Yeah,
which is out of Memphis, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, and this is something I'm still trying to get a handle on, from a layman's perspective. But there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going on that I don't even think some members even know goes on, and I'm not saying these discounts per se are a bad thing, because you get AARP has discounts and stuff. When you join AARP, you get that bulk membership, benefit. And that's basically the same for the members of the NRA. And I used to be a member of the NRA back in the 80s, and I gave it up in 93 when I was first diagnosed with bipolar, because I knew then that, having a gun was not I used to pistol shoot, target, and I used to teach 22 caliber rifles at a summer camp. And, so I left the NRA, and that's, around the same time I left, about a year or two later, is when they started getting a little too wonky for me.
Yeah, and they're not just a regular organization is the thing. AARP is also a lobbying organization, but AARP isn't convincing old people that, watch out, the young people are coming to get you. They're not inciting violence against young people. That's not, but the NRA is. They're inciting violence. Their ads with Dana Loesch, or Loesch, or whatever her name is. They're crazy.
Wow.
They're insane. They are so, unhinged, and it looks like freaking ISIS propaganda. That's how extreme it is.
Yeah, and I know people who are like, well, what's the problem? And it's is it indoctrination? Is it what they honestly believe, or
that's what I think?
Totally, it's
wow.
it's like it's really weird, and it's like I've been actually trying not to get into it because the whole gun control. I mean, I know the emotions run high. I have friends who are very responsible gun owners, but it's like, you know, I put on my banner, I'm now to the point where I don't fucking care what kind of gun or who fucking owns it, ban it. I mean, that's the point, you know, I'm at. I mean, so I can imagine what, you know, families of victims feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the Hogue, his family's receiving death threats. I mean,
somebody that survived a murder is receiving death threats. Like, yeah, just let that sink in. Like,
I mean, there's talk of being crisis actors. It's like, seriously? I mean,
nothing made me happier than watching that boy make Marco Rubio squirm. Oh man, was that a thing of beauty.
Marco Rubio always looks like I was listening to a podcast today and they were talking about Marco Rubio and they're like, he always like looks like he just realized that at the end of a day that he's not the man he thought he was. He's always like one day away from being a hero and he just can never get there, and it's like, oh well, we'll do it again tomorrow, and then he inevitably fails every day, and then it's a cycle.
Unbelievably slimy. Like, the kid asked him a very straightforward question. You know, Mr.
Okay,
will you decline money from the NRA going forward? And he could not answer.
This was Marco's response. I happen to have it handy. Okay. The influence of these groups comes not from money. The influence comes from the millions of people that agree with the agenda. The millions of Americans that support the NRA. He goes on. The positions I hold, I being Marco Rubio, on these issues of the Second Amendment, I've held since the day I entered office in the city of West Miami as an elected official. People buy into my agenda, and I do support the Second Amendment, and this is something we'll hit in 2 weeks. Yeah. I will always accept the help of anyone who agrees with my agenda. This is a man who received over $3 million from the NRA, by the way.
Yeah, but he's also telling you that he freaking believes that. Like, so he's telling you, hey guys, I'm an idiot and believe a solution to our gun problem in America is more guns. And I would believe that for free, which tells me, wow, you're even dumber than a guy that's bought. Like,
I hope that kid is inspired to go into politics because he did a damn fine job.
Oh yeah. Of publicly shaming Marco Rubio. I did see a funny meme that said, no wonder Marco Rubio hates socialism so much. Look at his face when he gets publicly owned.
What you got there, Beth?
This is a meme that came about today, and I had to think about it, whether I wanted to pass it along.
Right now, I just see a
white screen.
Yeah.
Well, it's a dude in full, what looks like military regalia or full body regalia for police or SWAT or whatever. On the front of his vest, it says art teacher.
Yeah.
And then I found this saying in one of the comments, and I thought it was pretty apt. It goes, if you had a teacher who was adept with firearms, they could end the attack very quickly, and that Trump's notion of, having armed security or armed teachers, but they'd have to be in this full military regalia.
Yeah, because they don't make schools look like prisons enough.
Well, hey, at least you won't have to worry about cutting yourself in class. Right? Don't worry about that nail gun, because
seriously,
teacher's wearing a ballistic armor, so
yeah. And then in my state, this bill is kind of, I don't know if it's dead or they haven't really been discussing it like they were since the Parkland shooting, but they were going to make it legal to conceal carry at my university. Despite my university's objections, and they're going to make it to where you can carry on any state college. And there's the guy that wrote it was like, oh, well, technically our law lets you already do that. And I was like, yeah, try carrying a gun on my campus and see if the police agree with that interpretation, because I promise you they will not. And then they're trying to make it to where it's clarifies it to where it says, yeah, you can. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we need at football games, a bunch of drunk people just firing at each other. And like
drunk college kids,
yeah, just having guns.
We scored a touchdown, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, like Yosemite Sam, like what the hell. And then yeah, I haven't heard anything since then, I think because of the Parkland shooting, and they were like, oh, maybe we pull this out of the media and stop saying that we're going to let people conceal carry on campuses. But yeah, it's just the mentality, and it's absolutely freaking crazy. And
well, it's like a meme I saw the other day. You want to end the discussion on gun control, and I don't mean to be insensitive to the issue behind it, is that have every person of color go out and buy a gun. Mm-hmm. That'll end the discussion real quick.
Yeah, the NRA pushed for gun control in the 70s, and the Black Panthers started doing that shit.
Yeah, with the Black Panthers, and that's what I mean. It's like,
yeah, Philando Castile, he had a gun, because that's what they say whenever the cops shoot somebody of color. They say, well, they shouldn't have had a gun, and it's like because they believe the Second Amendment should only apply to white people. It's very evident. Yeah, it's so transparent.
Ridiculous. I mean, and this is what makes a discussion about gun control in general so difficult, is that it's not just one issue. There's, it's like it's partly why I won't say I avoided, but I do follow it, but I generally don't get into discussions. But I've noticed myself being quite vocal, for me anyways, since this last shooting.
From an outsider's point of view, this is something I don't understand, is the emotional attachment to owning guns. Where
makes your dick bigger.
But yeah, it's all about these ideas that everybody, they're all real American hero Rambos, and they can, come in and save the day. And if there's a burglar that comes in and, they're going to shoot him in the face. And there's just like also, I think there's this callousness towards, like, I guess just the human life of others, because so many Americans have this fuck you, I have mine mentality. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, fuck you that your kid got shot, but I'd rather have my guns because it doesn't affect me. Well, I mean, that's just how it is.
It's interesting you say that, and this is going to sound totally off topic, but I promise it's not. Last week, I started watching a show it's actually been off the air for a couple of years, but since I don't pay for cable, I find these later on. But it was called Alaska State Troopers.
Yes, I'm familiar with it.
You're familiar. Okay. It was on National Geographic Channel, I think, when it was on. But it was basically cops in Alaska. And what I noticed, because this is really interesting that you answered my question that way, my takeaway from that was kind of a light bulb moment of, holy shit, every American thinks he's fucking John Wayne.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thinks this. Because up there, 60% of the population or more own guns. And they were just like, oh yeah, we just expect everybody has a gun in their car.
Yeah, and I think that also escalates the police shooting situation, because it's like, oh, well, I expect everybody to have a gun in their car. So, you freak out more.
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just this idea that everybody's armed to the teeth. And I mean, yeah, race, I think, plays a more predominant factor. But yeah, even in, I think that in the back of, officers' minds is also that notion that it's like, because everybody here is bristling with fucking weapons. Like, we live in fucking Israel carrying Uzis around. Like, it's insane.
I saw a couple of posts where they're going, well, everybody in Switzerland owns guns, and
yeah, but it's not like we do. It's a little different.
And while we were talking, I looked it up. There's mandatory military service in Switzerland. That means everybody is fucking trained on how to use a gun.
Yeah, and also they store them, like they don't just like leave them laying out on the fucking kitchen counter to, and it's not like an,
I guarantee
AR-15.
Uncle Billy Bob out in the shack doesn't know how to properly use a gun the way these people do.
Yeah.
Right? Or little school shooter doesn't care, and they're it's totally different. And people say, well, you can't have guns and can't have. Yes, we actually do. We have guns here. I used to own guns long ago, but it's the handguns that we severely restrict. Much. I mean, I got my first gun when I was 16, I think. I mean, my dad had me learning how to shoot a 12 gauge when I was like 12. So it's not that we don't have guns here, that we teach young people how to use guns. But I had to go, in order to get my gun license, I had to go for a 2-day safety course. And here it's called a firearms acquisition certificate you had to earn. So I think 16 was the minimum age. So my daddy was a real redneck, oh, you're old enough, you go get your gun license, And I did. And, the funny part, and it's not really all that relevant, but I think it's a cute story. The second half of the training that we had to do to get the FAC was practical training. So we went to a facility owned by whatever government ministry it was. I can't remember if it was the Ministry of Fisheries and Wildlife that had control over it or what. But they had a bunch of disabled guns. So like the action would work, but they had been like something had been done to them so that they could never fire again, sort of thing. And we had to show that we understood how to properly handle them. And they even had like bits of fake fence and stuff that was like, okay, you're out in the bush, and you come across a fence in your group. How do you get over the fence with your firearm? Like shit like that. And the funny thing was, it's kind of like your driving test, right? Where you have to drive a car to prove that you've learned how to drive a car. Well, you have to go with the disabled gun they provide you and prove that you know how to handle your weapon. And I was in a group because they want to do it like you're in a hunting party, right? So I was in a group with me and 3 guys. So I'm this 16-year-old girl with these 3 guys who are probably like somewhere between 16 and 18. I don't know. And we got to the part where we had to go over this fence or through this fence with our firearms. And so you were supposed to hand it off to your friend and then go over and whatever. And out of the group, even though the instructor kept saying what the error was, I was the only one that passed. Because he said, because we couldn't actually load the weapons because they've been disabled. Mm-hmm. The way they indicated whether your weapon was loaded or not was if you close the action. So those of you, I'm assuming somebody out there who may not know about guns, there might be some non-Americans listening, but the action is the part of the gun that is used where you load the ammunition in generally, unless you're using a clip, but we weren't, and that's a whole other. But it's like the part of the gun that opens up to either insert or eject a shell. And they said if the action is open, you're loaded. If the action is closed, that indicates that the gun is loaded. And so these 3 guys are, they're trying to be so careful about where they're pointing it and handing it to each other. And the instructor's standing there going, if the action's closed, you're loaded, right? Oh, yeah, we know. And they just kept doing it, and I was the only one that figured out he was basically telling them they were fucking up. I was like, yeah, Mr. I'm so cool with my shotgun guy. I have licensing. You don't. But anyway, I do believe we have come to the end of the. See, I knew we'd be able to fill an hour on our own easily.
I'm kind of surprised we ended up on the topic of gun control. Not because of it's just, I didn't think it would go that way. How odd is that?
That's all right. That's all right.
That's just weird.
By the way, your cat's taking a bath rather adorably in the background.
Oh, yes, there he is.
Oh. Hello, Mr. Zorro. He's like, what? I was busy.
Oh, he was busy licking my non-existing balls.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, I have to tell this story because it's kind of funny. I've been sleeping on my floor or my love seat, which the cat's on now, because I don't have a bed, and I will have one in a couple weeks. And I have my pillows and my comforter and my blankies and
forehead.
Oh, and I have this blue blankie that I've had about 20 years. It's one of those cheapy flannel things you can get from Dollar General or Walmart. The cat has taken a liking to it since he was a kitten. I mean, a little tiny kitten. So I had it up by my head, where he is, and I hear this. This is in the middle of the night, and I hear this rustling, and I'm like, he's fucking humping the damn blanket again. Before I got him fixed, he had started, and that's when I knew, well, time to get him fixed. And he hasn't done it since then. And then he grabs the blanket and he wraps it around. What's that?
He may have splooged on that before you got him fixed, and he smells it.
Oh, well, I've washed it a couple times since then, but so I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden I roll over and there he goes, dragging the blanket to the middle. It's like, seriously, kid, it's 2:30 in the morning.
Wanted to go hump in private, apparently.
It must have been. It was just so comical. You had to see it, but it was just like, I wake up in the morning and there's the cat sleeping in the middle of the blanket. It's like in the middle of the floor. And he's like, he's such a goober. He's the weirdest cat I've ever owned.
Well, on that note, where can we find that?
You can find my adventures of my cat splooging on my blue blanket at Dune998 on Twitter.com. But yeah, that's the easiest way to find me, and that connects to my blog, and it also connects to Facebook. And on Facebook, it's under Beth A. Hambridge, and I've been posting more stuff on my blog. So, and I'm also on YouTube, but I haven't put anything out in a while. So.
All right.
And I should have a new computer in the next 3 weeks.
Yes.
Nice.
Tax returns.
Yes, my taxes came in.
In case anybody's listening that has an issue, she's not using her food stamps to buy a computer, okay?
I'm not cashing in my whole whopping $200 a month food stamps.
No. Just
actually, no. My tax return. I think I got a nice system coming, so.
I hope so, because you've definitely been needing one for a while. So.
Well, this one's going on almost 10 years now, and it's starting to slow down. So
starting to. Well, that's pretty good then.
Yeah, I can hear differences, and I mean, I don't turn it off. I put it in sleep mode during the night, but. Yeah, it's definitely taken a beating, and it was from a rental center. It was not a brand new system when I bought it. But,
right.
you got to do what you got to do. And I decided that I was going to splurge with my tax returns this year. So this in Tennessee or Kentucky or wherever the hell we're going in 3 weeks. NaNo Con.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, yeah, Tennessee.
Yeah, I can almost talk like I'm from down there. Until somebody asked me to say a boat.
Yeah.
Or cooch.
I got that 3 times in fucking Milwaukee. Oh, you're from Canada? Can you say a boat? Oh. Anyway, Morgan, where can we find you?
All right, you can find me on the Bi Skeptical podcast with Trav Mamone. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mostring. That's Mostring. And you can also find me on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer.
Awesome. And you can usually find me on Holy Crap, the podcast, which is live on YouTube at 12:05 a.m. Sunday morning. Yes, that is the right time. Wasn't there last week. This last week I was my husband had a cold, and although I never got fully sick, I kind of was fighting it off all week. So I was like, no energy to do any damn thing. So I didn't do the show this week, but should be there this coming week, I think. Yeah. But anyway, that's holycrapthevlogcast.com. It's hosted by Shuj and Strobel, and there's a motley crew of 5 or 6 of us panelists that talk about all kinds of stuff. The week before actually was really cool. We had a psychiatrist on the show. So that was really fun. And it was the 200th show, and Shujin decided to get really drunk, and we're like, is that a good idea to do when the guest is a shrink? And yeah. It was quite amusing. He drank 2 bottles of wine, and by the end of the show, he was having a lot of difficulty with his enunciation. But anyway, also over my other show, Full Quranic, where I am reading the Quran, so you don't have to. I didn't put out a show this week, but I will be putting one out soon, and heading on to the next surah of the Quran. The last one, Allah got a little pervy, but we got some more rules to follow finally, because we haven't been a little sparse on the rules. Lots of threats, but very little rules. So there's that. So we'll find out what Allah has in store for us again this week. And you can find that at www.fullchronic.com. And I'm also on Google Play and iTunes. So there's all that fun stuff. And next week we will be here, of course, again, Monday, 7:30 Eastern. And we will be talking to Kevin Francis of the Left at the Valley podcast, who are out of British Columbia, Canada. So there will be a lot of about going on, let me tell you. I had the privilege of being on their show a few months ago, and Kevin has graciously agreed to come and hang out with us crazy ladies. So, yay! So that will be next week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, as usual. And following that, as Beth mentioned, we will be having Chris Rada back on, and she's going to talk about the paper she wrote to debunk our not-so-friend David Barton and his bullshit about the origins of the Second Amendment. Because if David Barton says it, you can be pretty sure it's fucking wrong. But anyway, we'll be looking forward to that. I don't think David Barton knows any actual history if it fucked him in the ass, basically. So, yeah. Although I guess he wouldn't be able to see it at that point, but you know what I mean. So anyway.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, we're going to hit probably 3 things. The debunking of Barton's book on the Second Amendment. In some of his talks, he's mentioned some, quote, history, and it turns out it's actually from Louis L'Amour, the author of... yeah, and then his claim that gun accidents just didn't happen during the 1700s, which is fucking bullshit, because I can even prove that is false. But yeah, it should be a good talk.
Yeah,
Like-
gunpowder never caused an accident.
I was gonna say, like, nobody ever blew their hand off with a flintlock. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
And nobody ever had a blunderbuss blow up in their face. Like, have you not watched the fucking Looney Tunes, people? Come on. Anyway, we will be back next week. And until then, we will leave you with our humanist creed, and we will see you then. Oh, except that my mouse decided to die. Isn't that fun? Ooh.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.